Welcome back to the Hard Skills Show, where we take a deep dive into the most challenging soft skills required to navigate leadership uncertainty, complexities, and change today and into the future. I'm your host, Dr. Mira Brancu, psychologist, leadership consultant, and founder of TowerScope. Now, why do so many high-achieving women feel like they have checked all the right boxes of conventional success, felt like they've done all the things, and still feel like something's missing or never enough? Today, we are going to talk about why traditional success strategies often fail women, what most leadership and coaching approaches miss for high-achieving women, and how to break free of the cycle of constant reactivity. And I think it's a great fit for this season's focus on endurance in leadership, because it is about the big picture and the long run. And regardless of whether you're a leader managing a team, simply trying to support your colleagues at the top of the organization or mid-level, this conversation is for you. So let me introduce our guest today, Tina Parker. Tina Parker is a visionary leadership coach and TEDx speaker. She went from cheerleading to the military, leading a team of 70 all-male drill sergeants through the largest training overhaul in Air Force history, affecting more than 500,000 airmen over the course of 15 years, which of course became the subject of her TEDx talk. You should listen to it. She has 25 years of experience as a military officer, a C-level executive, and a business owner. And her transformative journey also included the loss of a child, a cancer diagnosis, and a divorce that led her to develop her coaching company, Lead Outside the Lines, which is guiding visionary women to step into their authentic power so they can live, lead, and love with clarity, courage, and confidence. She holds a master's in leadership and management and multiple certifications on top of her military experience and her leadership career, including conscious leadership and women-centered coaching. So welcome and great to have you on the show, Tina.
Thank you, Dr. Mira. It's so good to be here with you, and I so appreciate the invite and the work that you're bringing into the world.
Absolutely. And Tina, you are a badass superstar. I'm so excited to have you here. You and I met. Do you remember how we met?
Oh, yes, during Marshall Goldsmith's inaugural Forefront group for rising coaches, and just the people like you that were connected in that community. It's incredible, the impact that all of us are making. So excited to be connected with you in that way and beyond, because that was 3 years ago.
That's right. That was the, as you said, the inaugural program was the first, attempt at it. They did an amazing job curating, people from all backgrounds and experiences. And I feel like every single person was amazing. And I grew from each person in these, the cohort, and it's still going strong. That 3 years later, it's still going strong. So that's how we connected. Now, let's start with going backwards now in your sort of career. You are a former college cheerleader, and you are a self-proclaimed feminine woman who traded pom-poms for combat boots, which I just love that comment. And you also served as a military officer and federal government executive. Now, I find all of this very interesting. How did this happen? And I will say, you're still a cheerleader in my eyes, but you are also really tough. And I just find that so interesting how you've sort of merged and combined those different parts of you. But I'm curious, let us into the journey. How did this happen?
Oh, goodness. Sure. Well, I will say military was not on my radar as an option for my career. I grew up in the military. My dad served, both my grandfathers, all my uncles.
Mm.
And halfway through college, yes, I was a college cheerleader and we were national champions. Like it was a big deal. Like it was all systems go in cheerleading. And I just got this notion that what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I don't know. And I happened to walk by the Reserve Officer Training Corps building, which is where the military gets their training for officership and commissioning. And I walked in just on a whim, and there happened
Mm.
to be a female major
Mm.
sitting there.
Oh.
And she had makeup on, her hair was up, she looked super professional in her uniform. And I went, oh, that's a little different. So we
Mm.
talked and she said, you know what, come in and see what you think. It's management and leadership because I got to skip the first 2 years, so go straight into the third year. She goes, just see what you think. And I loved it because it challenged me in ways that I wouldn't have challenged myself, probably left to my own devices. And it gave me opportunities to expand in leadership roles that I probably would not have had the opportunity to step into in any other capacity. And so it was really fascinating for me to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays in college, I'm in military uniform, and on Saturdays, I'm in cheerleading uniform. And
Mm.
people are like, I don't understand what's happening here. What is this? And I loved it because I was like, I don't need to be put in a box. I can be both, right? There's no reason that one can't be the other. So
That's right.
that's how that came
Yeah.
to.
And I will say there is a connection that I see that most people don't know about cheerleaders, which is they are intense performers,
Yes.
right?
High
Like,
achieving, high performance, very intense.
yeah, I mean, to be able to do those kind of acrobatics requires an incredible discipline and strength that to me is obvious that you can translate into lots of other intense performance and
Yeah,
um like physical intensive um jobs, and that includes the
absolutely.
military. So that part makes sense to me, even though like the feminine piece probably
Yeah.
doesn't like connect for most people in their minds.
Yeah, I will agree with you is that there was so much like being a cheerleader, being in time and in step with the team. What do you do when you're drilling as a
Mm.
military officer or as a military person? You're in step, you're in lockstep, you're in time, right? So there's so many similarities that you're right, most people miss because we're just looking at the surface. We're just looking
Yeah.
at the conditioned expectation of a military woman is very rigid and strict, and then a military or a cheerleader is very bubbly and happy and whatever, right? You can
Mhm.
be both, right? Breaking out of these paradigms, and that's sort of where lead outside the lines came from, was we get to lead however it feels most authentic and appropriate for us, not having to fit ourselves in these boxes that were never really built for us in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, what did you learn about leadership in your cheerleading life, and then in your military life, and in federal government as an executive?
Oh man, so much. And I mean, being in the military itself, you are in leadership programs all the time, right? But two things that I think specifically that I took away from all of that is one, just authenticity is the key
Mm.
because how we show up with bringing our genius gifts to the table, even and especially if you feel like you're in an environment that you're kind of like a fish out of water, you're like, I don't really fit in here. So, how do I bring myself, my full gifts to the table and not conform, not feel like I have to conform to these external expectations or these conditioned ways of being? Right. And so that was that was hard for me at first. I would think to myself, well, I don't have what it takes to do this job. Or why would they be looking at me to, like you said, come in and lead a team of 70 all male drill sergeants? We call them military training instructors. So I don't want my Air Force listeners to be like, wait a minute. But so they're military training instructors at boot camp of all places. Um, and I just thought, wait, I don't have the expertise to do this job. I don't look like them. I don't act like them. How in the world am I going to come in there and gain credibility and respect with these men? And they're going to look at me like I'm a college cheerleader, right? And so I will share that when I asked my commander, I said, thank you for choosing me. And can you share with me why you're doing that? Because I don't get it. Right. And she
Yeah.
said, she was like, specifically because I thought differently. I saw
Mm.
things differently. I came at things from a different perspective. And this was shortly after 9/11. So we were in a point where the world was changing very quickly. We weren't sure what to expect. And we had to now train our airmen to operate in those kinds of very uncertain and volatile environments, right? So there was no longer this cookie cutter linear strategy. It was like, how do you show up and think different, right? So from that perspective, it made sense. And one of the other things, keys that I'll bring up too about what I learned from that experience was the self leadership, because we're taught how to lead others, right? How to show up for other people. And even with my master's degree being in leadership, that was all that was really focused on, was leading other people. But one thing that I found in my career that I felt was missing was, how do I resource myself so that I can lead from a place of being grounded, being present, not feeling like I'm spinning around all the time, right? So that I can lead others better. Because, I mean, even as women, like, we're already wired and conditioned to focus on others anyway. So, how could I resource myself to be a better resource for others? So that was a piece that I really pulled into and started to do the research on and figure out, what does that look like?
Amazing. And given the fact that you were the only woman and on top of that put in a leadership role, I suspect that you were questioned a lot, and people wondered whether you were in the right role. And I connecting that to like self leadership. What did it take for you to stay grounded and manage people questioning you, but you continuing to stay focused on your role and mission without it throwing you off so much that it sort of threw you off of your leadership game? Or did it throw you off your leadership game, but then you sort of like learned some ways to get back on?
That's a very good distinction. And I'm glad you said that, because it did throw me off. I came in thinking at first, like, okay, I'm going to borrow the confidence that my commander clearly sees in me, which I do not feel in this moment, right? I was 28 years old. I didn't know what from what at that time, right? So coming in, I initially did sort of defer to them, like, hey, and I was humble about it. Like, I don't know what you know. I teach me, I'm here, we can do this together, right? And at first they weren't sure if they could trust me. One, because I wasn't like them. Two, I was sent in from upper leadership, and they're like, are you really here for us? Or are you kind of here to like police what's going on? Like, what is this? Right. And so there was that time of transition that happens in any stepping into a new role, but especially in this environment, there was some of that I had to overcome. And what I will share is that it went south before it went north,
Mm.
because I just kind of took for granted that they were telling me what I needed to know instead of digging deeper, and not realizing that they didn't fully trust me. And so there came a time when we were about to launch this new prototype of the training. And thankfully, one of my number two person, he was new. He came into the group a little bit later, and he was like, "Ma'am, I think there's something you need to see." And he trusted me to
Mm.
walk me through the entire thing. And I was like, "This is not going to work." He goes, "Yeah, it's not." He goes, "If we launch this, it's not going to work." So I got to go to my commanding officer and say, "We can't launch this. I need more time." And I got the riot act for it. It's like, well, what are you doing down there at first, right?
Mm.
But then it was like, well, here's what's happening. And it was another woman, and she understood. She was like, okay, I'm going to give you more time. When we came back to the group, my superintendent and I together met with the team, and we said, look, if you do not trust us and each other enough to be a part of what needs to happen here so that our airmen have what they need to succeed, no harm, no foul. You can find another team to be on, no problem. But we need people who are all in. And we need people who are willing to think outside the box, who are willing to put themselves in a place of vulnerability and being uncomfortable to ask, what do we need that we don't currently have, and how do we make it happen? And they were like, wait, you went to bat for us to get us more time? I said, yeah, because I believe in what we're doing here and I trust you. But if you don't trust me, that's okay. And they were like, no, we're all in. And
That's,
so, yeah, so sometimes
yeah.
you go through the trench, right, before you get to a place where there is some commonality. And like you said, we were able to create this new way of training the airmen that lasted for about 15 years
Mm.
in the Air Force. Now the world changes, so of course they have to change along with it. But it really was coming to the table and being honest and trusting myself and having someone else trust me enough that together we could go in together.
Yeah, yeah.
So
What an inspirational story. So we are nearing an ad break. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Bronco, and our guest today, Tina Parker. We air on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. At that time, if you're actually watching right now, you can live stream us through LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, several other locations at talkradio.nyc. And we will be right back with our guest in just a moment.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Bronco, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Bronco, and our guest today, Tina Parker. So, Tina, before we get into some of the frameworks that you have when you work with women, I'd love to also pull in a little bit of something else that we talked about when I was introducing yourself, because I think it had probably a pretty critical impact on how you came to do the work that you do now. In addition to what we just talked about with all of your leadership experiences, you also experienced the loss of a child, a cancer diagnosis, and a divorce, all within 4 years, if I understand, while also managing a civilian and military role and earning your master's degree and growing a business. This, I mean, just like 1 to 2 of those is enough. I have no idea how you got through that, but I would love to hear kind of, when you finally, started coming out of that time period, what perspective changed for you? And what did that mean for where you were going next?
yeah, those 4 years were very difficult, obviously. And I think one of the things that really shifted for me is, so it happened in succession. I lost my first pregnancy after fighting through the flu and going to work and pushing through. Now things happen, right? I don't blame myself for that, but that's what happens sometimes when we feel like I have to show up. Nobody else can do what I can do. I have to be there. And we put this pressure on ourselves, right? Then I had my daughter, and 6 months after giving birth to her, cancer diagnosis. And they literally said, they're like, this is one type of cancer we don't normally find until it is too late and it has metastasized. And I almost did not go for the screening that found it because I had work to do and I'd already missed so much work from being out with being sick and all this stuff. And so the stories that we tell ourselves about what we're expected to do and what's going to happen if I don't show up for other people, right, almost kept me from going to have this diagnosis done.
Wow.
And I can't even imagine, because they said you'd be dead in 10 years if you didn't come in and find this.
Wow.
And that's a huge wake-up call, right? To go, what am I doing? Like at work, I'm smiling and I'm the go-to and everybody's like, go to Tina, she'll figure out, blah, blah, blah. And I always show up. But I was not showing up for myself. I wasn't even fully showing up in my marriage because I just had this notion that I have to keep it all together. It's all on me, right? We were building a business together, just had a kid, lost a kid. Like there's a lot happening in this marriage. And it got to the point where I literally, when we filed for divorce, I drove to work and I sat in the parking lot and I just stared at the building. Like I just felt so heavy in my seat and weighted down by all of it. And I just thought to myself, I was like, what is success without myself? Like, this just doesn't feel like success at all. I did all the things I thought I was supposed to do. I checked all the boxes. I did all the stuff. But this is not the life that I want to be living. And I really just thought, how did I get here? And I just started peeling it back and going, well, I didn't connect to what I truly needed, what I wanted, what my actual core values were, because I was so focused on just doing for everybody else. And that was a hard lesson because I sat there and I said, I am not willing to say to myself that I can either be successful professionally or personally. Like this whole either or concept was not working for me. I was like, no, I want to find, there's got to be a way. I see other people who look like they have it all together. Okay. Spoiler alert, nobody really does. So let's just lay that out there, right? Things look a certain way on the outside, but we all have these patterns of how we were conditioned growing up, what we think we're supposed to be doing, what we think we're supposed to show up as, even if deep inside we're like, that does not feel aligned and congruent with me, right? Consistently showing up in ways that are not aligned and congruent with us, not tuning into ourselves first before we tune into what other people need. These are things that really can send us down the wrong path. And I just made the decision I'm going to figure out how to change that path. And so I spent about a decade, honestly, researching and learning from gurus in brain health and women-centered coaching and conscious leadership and neuroencoding and you name it, I probably did it. Just to go, what's the story here? What's the secret sauce?
Yeah. And what have you concluded?
Yeah. So the secret sauce really is that pausing long enough to tune into ourselves and question and go, is that really who I am? Am I showing up in my full capacity, aligned with who I am and how I am in the world? Or am I trying to fit into the expectations of other people? Am I so afraid of what might happen if I take my foot off the gas, like who I'll let down, right? All of these stories that we tell ourselves, especially as women, like there are 21 patterns. So, I'm certified in women-centered coaching, right? And Dr. Claire Zammit, she has done 25 years of study across the world with women at the doctoral level, and she's coached over 100,000 women. And there are 21 patterns that limit us that consistently come up across all of them. And I will be honest, I couldn't really even see it myself until she was able to show me. Like, because it's like we are the fish in the water going, where's the water? You're sitting in it, right? And so one of the patterns I will share, because I think and I know a lot of women, it's one of the top 3 deal with that I couldn't see, is the I'm alone pattern. And I was like, I'm not alone. I'm surrounded by people. But the reality was I felt like I had to take it all on myself. I was overgiving, overcommitting, overfunctioning, not wanting to let people down, not wanting to say, well, I can't do that, right? And not tuning into what I needed. I just said, yep, yep, yep. And I took it all on, right? Feeling like I had to do it alone. And that I was somehow seen as weak if I asked for support. And what I have realized is that is 180 degrees opposite of what actually happens, is especially for high achieving women in general, but we thrive in community, and we thrive when we're able to say, oh, I've been through something similar as well, or I see myself in your story, right? And we don't feel like we're isolated, because the three things that shut us down the most are the shame-based meanings we make about ourselves when things go wrong. I'm wrong. Something's wrong with me. I'm not enough. Rather than this thing happened, I can figure out a way to get beyond that, right? Or lack of there's not enough. I don't want to take from other people because there's not enough, so I'll just not take, right? No, we get to create a bigger pie. We get to all throw our ingredients in the bowl and mix it up and create something bigger. We don't just have to take this little sliver of what's left. And then the isolation just exacerbates all of that. So when we can be in community and rely on each other, our resources expand externally, and we're able to better resource ourselves internally.
Yeah. Yeah. All of those resonate. And, for those listeners out there who are probably thinking, about like, yeah, but, if I don't do those things, I'll receive backlash, right? If I don't do those things, I will be judged negatively. You are not wrong about that.
That is true.
In that, you mentioned it earlier on, Tina, that these are conditioned, learned. And what you're sort of sharing is this is how you unlearn unhealthy messages that we learn over time and then internalize as if they're our own messages, right? Like the things we tell ourselves are technically not our messages. We just took it from society and incorporated it and assumed that like it's actually who I am, and it's not at all, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, so my daughter was having some, I will say, impulse issues when she was 6. And we took her to have her brain scanned instead of throwing medicine and stuff on it so we could see what was happening. And I will say that was the start of my journey of seeing what's happening in the brain. And so through this study, something I learned that goes exactly to what you are saying is that from the time we're born until we're about 7 years old, we're just a sponge. Like we don't have the capacity to make meaning about things that we hear. And as kids, I mean, we literally think the world revolves around us. It's like, and that's an okay thing. It's just the way that we are, right? And so we kind of internalize if something bad happened, if we were told something, all of that gets imprinted on us. And it becomes the foundation of this loop that just plays out in the back of our minds all the time. And it doesn't even have to be traumatic. Like I know that yes, trauma happens and that is a thing, but all of us have these conditioned imprints that just play out. And I will share for me, one of them was I always saw my mom taking care of everything and everyone, right? And she was always happy and she always made everything happy. And I literally internalized and just didn't realize it, that was my role. Yeah. Was to be everything for everyone, to show up and be happy, to make everything okay, even if it was at the expense of myself.
Absolutely. That's a great example that I think a lot of people can relate to. So we are reaching another ad break. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Tina Parker. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about her own 10 principles that she identified in her ebook. And learn a little bit more about which ones might be her favorite. So stick around and find out.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Tina Parker. So, Tina, we had started touching on the impact of social conditioning and learning and early imprinting on the messages that we get all around us from society that cause us to sort of behave in ways that may or may not sabotage our happiness or success, right? And that this is not really like our fault. It is just how we learn, how our particular society defines success or not success. And to tease it apart more, I mean, everybody learns that, right? So it's not specific to women, but what is specific to women are the things that you described. And I'll make it even more specific. I'm writing a book on this, and sort of the book specifically is for women, high achieving women in leadership. So teasing apart what is achievement identity and social conditioning around achievement identity. What is gender identity and social conditioning around what it means to be a woman? And leadership identity, what that means when we're conditioned to what like leadership means and what it doesn't mean, right? And when you have these intersecting situations where you have messages, for example, like you were mentioning, to overfunction, overdo, take care of everybody and everything, overlook your own needs for other people's needs, which, crosses over across these different ways of, learning how to be in the world. Sometimes you end up having lots of tensions and misalignments, and you talk a lot about that. So I would love to hear more about what are the sort of most common tensions and misalignments that you see when you're working with high achieving women around these kinds of things.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty standard for a lot of us. We start to recognize that we're more short-tempered, we're more irritable, we feel like we're reacting to things all the time. And that's just because we just feel so stretched thin. Like there isn't enough resourcefulness within us to give to everything. But when we start to recognize that, and we start to recognize, we're worrying about work when we're at home, and we're worrying about home when we're at work, right? We feel like I'm not giving enough here, I'm not giving enough there. And the story plays out over and over and over that I'm not enough, right? And it just compounds this limiting identity, because you hit it right on the head. It is these self-concepts about who we are, right? That keep us stuck in these, I call it the downward spiral of reactivity. And there are ways to shift ourselves into the upward spiral, but it's really recognizing that we're getting into that downward spiral first. And a lot of us, we feel like, well, I just can't take my foot off the gas because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to drop the ball. I don't want to let people down. And you mentioned it earlier too. And I don't want the backlash that could happen. It's going to happen. And it's not because, for most part, it's just because people have become accustomed to the way that you show up. And anytime a pattern shifts like that, it's kind of like, wait, what's happening? Right? So there is a period of adjustment. And it does take us really getting connected with who we are and our values and what's really important for us, rather than we keep running on the hamster wheel of just what we've been taught as the definition of success, to your point.
Yeah. And, frankly, the people who are angry with you trying to break an unhealthy situation and pattern are not the people you're trying to appease here. Like, they're not with it. The people who really admire when you do that, those are the people that are worth your time and energy. And we often overlook that, like, not everybody's worth my time and energy, but we're trained to just give our time and energy to everybody and everything without making any assessment about whether they are going to fill our needs equally or reciprocally. So that's a little soapbox you just like triggered in me when
I love it though. I love it though, because it is so true, right? Is that we lack the discernment for ourselves, right? To discern, is this right, good, healthy, whatever for me, versus and this goes back again to the woman-centered coaching, is there's 3 attentions that we talk about, and women have been conditioned to get it backwards, right? We focus on other people first, then the energy of what's happening around us, or higher purpose, higher power. Then if there's anything left over, we get some for ourselves, right? There's nothing left over. We all know this. And so the key is we have to shift that. And it can be just in a moment. This is not like you have to go on a sabbatical for a year, right? You can, that's wonderful. But there can be micro moments of just noticing, wait, I'm feeling out of alignment. I'm feeling frazzled. I'm feeling like I'm maxed out here. It's probably because I have not yet tapped into, what do I need? Where's my superpower, right? We can connect into this part of ourselves that is resourced, that knows what we need, that knows we're badass women, right? And tap into that first. Then assess, okay, what's happening around me? What's the energy that I'm putting out? What's the energy that I'm allowing myself to absorb or not? And only then do we turn our attention to what others need from us. Because if we do it the other way around, like many of us do, and I did for a very long time, we are not resourced to provide for other people because we haven't provided for ourselves.
Yeah.
So it is not selfish. It is helping us to be stronger, better, more aligned, more grounded, more present, all the things that we want anyway, so that we can bring our genius gifts into the world in a way that feels aligned and authentic.
Now, tell me, you mentioned a downward spiral of reactivity, and that there is a way to shift into an upward spiral. So I would love to know, what does it look like when you're on the downward spiral? And how do you shift? What does it actually take to make that shift?
Yes. So we talked a little bit about what the downward spiral looks like, right? It's that feeling of overwhelm, which overwhelm is not a state, it's an emotion. It is a feeling that we have because of the meaning that we make about what's going on, right? And so the downward spiral of reactivity happens when we feel like we are not in control of ourselves, that we are constantly, responding, reacting to what other people are doing, right, around us. And that we can feel it. We can feel that we're frustrated. We can feel that overwhelm. We can feel the stress, right? And there is a way for us to turn the stress into fuel for ourselves. And that is by that pause, notice what's going on, and reconnect into ourselves, right? Those 3 attentions that we talked about. And then choose, how do I want to move forward? Do I want to continue to move forward in a way that feels reactive and stressful? Or would I like to move forward in a way that feels generative and life-giving for me? And understand that's going to be different for each person. And that's why we have to connect to ourselves first to know, what is it that I want? Why is this triggering me, right? Is that really my story, or is that someone else's story? right? Instead of just keeping running on the hamster wheel and running ourselves into the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that when you're describing this, it sounds simple.
Oh yeah.
You're on this show because these are hard skills. Okay.
Exactly.
These are really, really hard skills. And what it takes is learning how to separate what part of this is me and the things that I personally need to work on because I'm escalating a situation or I'm contributing to a situation, or this is just my personality and I'm not connecting with this environment. So what part is me? What part of this is learned conditioning that has affected my ability to succeed? And I need to unlearn it in order to find a better, healthier way to engage in the world in a way that's, like you said, life sustaining, energy providing. And then what part is the culture that I'm working in that I have to sort of like decide, is this the right culture for me or not? Am I willing to challenge myself to adjust or to meet the, need of the day or not? And I think the most important piece here, once you learn that, ability to, like you said, pause, attend, and then separate out those things for yourself, is that knowing that you do have a choice in most situations, not all, I recognize, but, you did mention like the micro moments. You have some tiny actions you can take, even if you can't take big actions. And that is a choice too. And I'm not sure everybody realizes when they do have a choice, like they actually have a choice. I'm curious about like your experiences working with people who for such a long time have felt stuck to the point of learned helplessness. How do they start finding out that they have a choice or realizing that they can take small actions, even if it doesn't seem like the biggest action that they might need or want?
Yeah, we do learn these things over time. And recognizing that in certain situations, yes, it can feel extremely difficult to break out of these, right? There are systemic things in place that can do that. There are family conditioning, cultural conditioning that just gets imprinted on us, that can make it more difficult. But really what we can do is challenge the questions that we're asking, right? Because even to the point where we go, why is this happening to me again? This always happens to me. Okay, that is a downward, like you can feel the downward pull. Like the spiral just feels like, oh, it feels heavy, right? But then switch that question and go, what might I learn from this? Is there something I can take away that can help me to move forward in a different way? Like literally, we grow in the direction of the questions we ask.
Interesting.
And
super interesting.
Yeah, if you, so just try it, even if it feels weird, and it will at first, like just understand if it's not familiar, your brain's going to go, ew, that's funky. I don't want to do that. Well, just because it's not familiar doesn't mean it's not helpful, right? A lot of times we get stuck in the familiar and that's what keeps us stuck. So shift the way that you're asking the question and give it some more life and see what happens.
Beautiful. Spoken like a true coach. So we are reaching an ad break. We're going to take a pause. I want you to take some time to reflect on all of this stuff. And when we come back, we will get some real practical next step tips of how to apply all of this. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Tina Parker, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, aka the corporate cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Navtej Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Tina Parker. So you have an ebook with 10 principles that people can work through. And we might not necessarily cover all of them, but I'm curious, number one, how did you develop these? What are they for? And share with us a little bit about your favorite ones as you were developing it.
There's so many that are my favorites, but I will try to narrow it down. What I will share is that these are born out of 8 principles that come out of woman-centered coaching. And it's based around feminine power. And part of what I loved about these is that they really just share and shine a light on how women have been functioning within this strategic achievement-based paradigm, basically, for what does it mean to be successful? What does it mean to be a leader? How do I move up the ladder? How do I become successful in life? And when we try to fit ourselves into this linear goal achievement pathway, which, by the way, is not bad. I'm not saying that that is bad. It has brought about so many great things. And it is helpful when you have a goal, you're trying to achieve it, you're trying to move forward, you have your steps, it works, right? Accountability, all that good stuff. And there's another level for women that we just, in the course of history have not been encouraged to tap into. And that is our feminine genius. We don't function as well in a straight linear achievement-based process when we get to a certain level, and we're talking to high achieving women, right? When we get to a certain level, we realize there's more here. There's more for me to tap into. We want relationships. We want expansion. We want the ability to, this is the thing about women, when we find the medicine that fills whatever it is that we've been experiencing, we don't want to keep that to ourselves. We actually bring that back to the village, right? That's been the history of women. We bring it back to the village and we want to share it with everyone, right? So it really is this perspective of being able to see a greater possibility for humanity, a greater possibility for how each individual can bring their gifts in to create something that may not exist, right? And so this ability for us to tap in to really, there's a lot of things, but these 10 key areas in our life help us to be able to break free of that pattern of feeling like I'm stuck inside of a box that just really wasn't created for me, right? Yeah. And so for me, we talked a little bit about creativity. Creativity is one of the 10. And the reason I love it is because it's not, we have a notion that creativity is about painting and dancing, which is wonderful and it's lovely. But in this context, creativity is really our ability to create the experiences, the outcomes, the opportunities that we most desire while bringing forth our own genius, gifts, and talents. And so tapping into the creative parts of us, which quite honestly get shut down a lot of times when we are more in that structured achievement-based, paradigm. And so it's about reaching the goal, not creating something bigger. And so really being able to tap into, what does that feel like when that creative juice sparks? When I go, oh, I feel like there's a bigger possibility here that maybe I can't fully see or explain, but I feel it, right? And that's a time when one of the other keys is tapping into connection with ourselves, connection with others, because Dr. Zamet in Women-Centered Coaching, she says something that it really, literally blew my mind when I heard it. She said, we cannot become ourselves by ourselves.
That's really, really good.
It's, again, seems simple, but underneath it, it's very deep.
And I'd like to add a little bit more to that. I'm sure she spoke about it, but when you think about achievement-based culture, and you hear a lot about meritocracy, right? Mm-hmm. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, Lone Ranger, this single hero model of leadership, right? The message constantly over and over is, I got there by myself. I did it by myself, right? That's not true at all.
Ever.
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 Yeah. And not acknowledging really what it takes sends a message that if I'm realizing that the reality is I need people, that makes me feel weak, when in fact, that's the reality.
Yes, exactly. And you're right. That is what perpetrates this feeling of, I'm incompetent, I'm not capable, I'm weak if I can't figure this out on my own. And I mean, let's be honest, as smart, conscious, aware, and capable women, and we're the go-tos for a lot of things, we can get in our own head to go, why can't I figure this out? Mm-hmm. Something is missing. Something feels off. Why can't I figure it out? I am smart. I'm capable. What's wrong with me? And the reality is nothing. Absolutely nothing is wrong with you. It is through this reflection and amplification from other people and brainstorming and tapping into different perspectives that we are able to, one, connect with our own deeper knowing about ourselves, and two, create and see possibilities that by ourselves, we just can't see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's powerful. It's not weak in any stretch.
No, it's acknowledging reality, and it's a much more mature way of viewing things, as opposed to when we were 7 and we were egocentric and thought the world revolved around us.
Yes.
So, looking at the last couple of minutes here, what is the one thing out of everything that we talked about today? What is the one thing that you would like people to take away from today?
I think the one thing is trusting yourself. It is leading ourselves to the place where we're coming home to who we truly are, and trusting ourselves, because we all have intuition. We're born with it, right? The way our bodies are wired, we bring in receptors and we can sense things that are happening, but we stop trusting that if I can't validate something outside of myself, then it's not true. Like, I must be crazy, because there isn't external validation for whatever I'm feeling or thinking. And that's not true. The self-leadership is the ability to pause, tune into ourselves, and really notice what's going on for us and trust it, because our bodies are a lot smarter than our brains.
Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, think about when you get that spidey sense and you know something's off about a situation, but you can't put your finger on it. Right? Your brain has processed more information than you're able to articulate, but there's something there. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly right. So if people want to learn more about you, I know I already shared a little bit earlier as you were talking about the 10 principles and your ebook. I was sharing for those of you, folks who were watching, leadoutside-the-lines.com/10 as the number 10. Keys ebook, KEYSEBOOK. Okay. So go there if you want that ebook, but there's other places to find you too. So tell us a little bit about your company, and then your Visionary Women's Alliance.
Oh, absolutely. So yes, leadoutsidethelines.com is where folks can go and find out more about what we're up to, how they can get involved. And really the way this came about for Lead Outside the Lines was to help visionary women trust themselves, to step into their authentic power and own the space that is rightfully ours. Because we have done the work, we're bringing our gifts to the world. And with the Visionary Women's Alliance, there is a conscious leadership accelerator that goes into that. So for those of you who may just be like, hey, I just want to know how do I shift from reactivity to creativity? Yes, I'm interested in everything else, but one step at a time. Great. That's the Conscious Leadership Accelerator, helping you to really have those micro moments where you can shift in the moment from reactivity to creativity. And I know it can be done because I have lived it in my own life. I have a great relationship with my daughter. I'm remarried to an amazing man. I have my own business that I love, that I never thought I'd be able to start, and had a really strong co-parenting relationship with my ex, which is not always easy. So
amazing.
I promise you, it works. It works.
Amazing. Thank you. So everybody, what did you take away from today? And more importantly, what is one small change that you can implement this week based on what you learned from Tina? Share it with us on LinkedIn so we could cheer you on. You know, she used to be a cheerleader. She will cheer you on. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Apple, Spotify, and Amazon Podcasts. If today's episode resonated for you, share it with a colleague or leave a review. And of course, if you are looking for more personalized support around leadership or team coaching, you could also head to towerscope.com. That's my company. The stuff that I like to talk about is part of my strategic leadership pathway roadmap. I use it to help socially conscious organizational misfits on their leadership journeys. And otherwise, thank you to talkradio.nyc for hosting. Together, we will navigate the complexities of leadership and emerge stronger on the other side. Thank you for joining me and Tina Parker today on this journey. This is Dr. Mira Brancu signing off. Until next time, stay steady, stay present, and keep building those hard skills muscles. Bye, everybody.